Sup Internet, Fantastic Mr. S here again, and you're watching Dangerously Rockin' Reviews! Now, normally on this channel I like to ramble on about songs or albums, but today I'm going to be doing something different. And I'm going to be talking about video games. It's still going to be music related though, but this one happens to be a video game that my brothers got me for Christmas about 7 years ago. And no, it's not the one that you're thinking of. It's something entirely different. But it's still awesome. Ready for this? Because what I'm about to tell you is not just going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your soul. This one is called Brütal Legend. Just a side note before we get started, I actually did a review of this game once before after I first played it. But it wasn't written form and it was something that I just posted on Facebook at the time, so consider this a re-review in video form. Alright, let's begin. So Brütal Legend centers around a roadie named Eddie Riggs, played by Jack Black, and he moonlights for a mediocre rap metal band. He doesn't like the state of today's music and longs to go back to, in his own words, when music was real. You and me both, brother. But one fateful night during one of their concerts, he gets killed trying to save one of the band members. But then his belt buckle gets exposed to his blood, and he is thus transported to a world of heavy metal. Once there, he meets a metalhead girl named Ophelia, as well as a whole crew of colorful characters such as Lars and Lita, who are a brother and sister duo, a biker/bass guitarist modeled after and voiced by Motorhead's late Lemmy Kilmister, another biker voiced by Judas Priest's Rob Halford, and Ozzy Osbourne playing Ozzy Osbourne, big shock, as well as a whole lot of headbangers and groupies. And they literally band together to battle demons and stop the evil Diviculus, voiced by Tim Curry, from taking over the land. That's about as awesome as it sounds, right? Of course it is! I mean, it's not without its flaws, but we'll get to them later. For now, let's talk about the awesome stuff. The story is pretty basic, but it's still solid, and it's got some good humor here and there. I personally enjoy the idea of being transported to a fantasy world, because there's just so many different directions you can go with it. And Brütal Legend's story definitely does that, even offering us some unexpected twists. I'm not going to spoil any of them for you, but just know that those twists change the course of the story. And the boss fights do get harder as the game progresses, for the most part. But what's a great story without some great characters? And thankfully, Brütal Legend's got some fantastic characters. But Eddie Riggs, being the main character, is by far my favorite. He takes charge without problems, but he never lets it go to his head. In fact, he'd rather be out of the spotlight than in it, which makes for a very likable and very well-rounded character. I'm just gonna say this now, you could not have picked a better voice actor for him than Jack Black. His performance captures that fun-loving metalhead spirit that is Eddie. And his background with Tenacious D definitely helps.
It's called heavy metal, and it's the real reason you should bang your heads, not for that guy.
Ophelia is also pretty interesting. She's tough and is willing to risk her own life for the sake of her friends. But there are times when she feels unsure of herself, and that comes into play later on. The side characters aren't much in terms of personality, but they all got some badass designs, and having Ozzy, Lemmy, Rob Halford, and Lita Ford lend their voices and likenesses is a nice touch. I also really enjoyed the gameplay itself. It's fun to run or drive around in this open world that is the heavy metal realm, and it's got some fun side quests in there too. I will admit though, most of them are pretty much the same demon battling missions, just in different locations. But there are a good chunk of them that go a different direction. But I think the stage battles would have to be the highlights of the gameplay. Some people have said though that the real-time strategy doesn't mix well with the boss fights, and I can understand where they're coming from. I know I've had my frustrations with it. But I think it's a good challenge, so I'm cool with it. Besides, it's always fun to melt your enemies' faces with a guitar solo. I wonder if he could do the same thing to Rihanna.
Like I'm the only one who knows.
Nice! Now can you do Taylor Swift?
We never go out of style. We never go
Hell yeah! Woo! Who else can you take out?
Rolling on 35s, pretty girl by my side.
I could watch this all day. The soundtrack has got to be, without a doubt, the best soundtrack I have ever heard, period. Not just because it's an almost all-metal playlist, but because of how wide the range of songs is. You got songs from Black Sabbath, you got some Aussie songs, you got some Motorhead, Judas Priest, Motley Crue, Saxon, Megadeth, Iced Earth, Slayer, Deathclock, even some Tenacious D, appropriately enough. This is about as epic as a soundtrack can be. And they didn't just choose the obvious hits this time. They went deep into these bands' catalogs, and I'm talking real deep. Which I think is a good move. Because not only does it help to introduce people to more obscure songs, which I think deserve more attention, but it also helps to make the game stand out more. And to give us a break from that same old, same old. I only wish though that they were able to get some Iron Maiden and Metallica songs in there. I really love those bands, and they got tons of great songs to choose from. But in all fairness, the game's got a whole arsenal of fantastic tracks as it is, so I'd say they've more than made up for that. Not to mention that they did manage to get some references to both bands in there, so at least they weren't left out entirely. The character designs here are also really good, especially that of Eddie. He's got a bit of a cartoony look going for him, but I think it really works. I don't know, most human characters in video games never really look right to me. They look like emotionless plastic dolls, often falling into the uncanny valley. Even some of the human characters here look a bit off, especially some of the main supporting characters. But not Eddie. He's just got the right amount of cartooniness and realism mixed into one. And then we got Brütal Legend's pièce de résistance, the biggest reason that I love the game. The environments. Every inch of this realm screams heavy metal. And different flavors of it too. The colors, the angles, the different regions, and the metal-inspired locale. That's about as epic as it gets. Sorry, Metalocalypse. And to be perfectly honest, it makes you wish you could live there. For real. Wouldn't that be great? To live in a heavy metal world and drive around at hyperspeed in your druid plow and fighting demons with your electric guitar. A man can dream, can't he? But that's still a sign that they put their damnedest into this game. However, I did say the game wasn't without its flaws, so let's bring them up now. For starters, while most of the gameplay and controls work well, I do have to question one aspect. Why can't you make Eddie Riggs jump? Most other video game characters can jump, so why not him? Yeah, I know you need the A button to slice your foes' heads off, but if that's the case, why not just use the Y button for that? Or better yet, have the Y button be the jump control. I mean, it's pretty much useless beyond the special attack combos and the guitar solo, so I think you could have easily fit the jump control somewhere on that controller, you know? Also, the downloadable content in multiplayer mode just felt like afterthoughts. The DLC is different facial options for Eddie as well as some additional maps for multiplayer mode, and that's about it. And on top of that, you can't really do multiplayer on the same console, which kinda sucks. I mean, the whole point of multiplayer is to allow multiple players to play this game at the same time! You morons! As for the final boss battle, while it was fun, it should have been more difficult than it ended up being. I don't know, I noticed that with each boss battle, the game got more difficult as it went on, as I mentioned earlier. But the second last battle, that was the toughest of all of them to beat. In fact, it was the only one I ended up skipping the third time I played this game because it was just goddamn impossible. But I did beat that level all the other times because luck, I guess? Yeah, that level makes the last boss battle look tame. And I'm also a bit on the fence about the main villain. I love his design, and Tim Curry does a marvelous job voicing him, but there isn't a whole lot to his character. I mean, sure, they do give him an elaborate backstory as well as a relationship to Eddie's parents, but he still felt like a run-of-the-mill bad guy to me. That said, they did make up for that. Once again, I'm not going to spoil how, but just know that you can feel its threat. But those are all just minor things, because otherwise, Brütal Legend is a masterpiece, an experience like no other, and that's saying a lot. I wish more video games, even the Guitar Hero and Rock Band franchises, had that kind of effort put into them. Hell, I'd love for there to be a sequel to this game. And in fact, they were going to make a sequel after this, until EA Games came in and canceled it. What the hell, EA? No Brütal Legend sequel? Come on! I mean, if there's any video game that is more deserving of a franchise than most video games out there, it is this one. I mean, think of all the potential that's out there. All the stories you could make, all the different metal subgenres out there. You could explore prog metal, or symphonic metal, or stoner metal, or even nu metal. And don't forget to throw in a jump command while you're at it.
I think I heard once the
But I'm getting too ahead of myself here. Brütal Legend as a standalone thing is a sight to see, hear, and play. It may be aimed for a very specific audience, but it knows what it wants and it executes its ideas beautifully. It's one of my favorite video games of all time, and if you're a metalhead or a gamer, or better yet, both, then the mission to save heavy metal awaits. And in the spirit of Brütal Legend, I think I'm gonna go with a new brutal rating system instead of my usual epic rating system. So in that case, brutal victory! I'm the fantastic Mr. S, and be sure to look out for my next Dangerously Rockin' review! It is gonna be something juicy. Ah!